First, we wanted to take a little bit of a poll of the crowd to see our age groups in terms of our children. How many here have preschoolers? A lot of you. Okay, preschoolers. What about elementary schoolers? We have a nice range. It's just going to be up. Some of us, including me and Eva, will have like early childhood to high school. And then we have middle schoolers and high school. And then beyond, I'm guessing some. Okay, love it. So it's really a wide range. We'll do our best to try to keep examples applicable to all ranges. But a lot of the things that we're talking about are pretty broad. So we think we'll be fine. Okay? So let's start with a scenario. Okay? We're going to start with a scenario. Your child is part of a group of friends. It's a middle school girl. There's a chair right here if you want to sit. A middle school girl. She has a group of friends. Chats are a thing. You know, chats. I'm on this one, I'm not on that one. One girl that she's pretty friendly with, not best friends, pretty friendly with, had a party. There was an invite through the chat. She wasn't invited. She's really upset. What do you do? What do we do as parents? How do we react?
Feel free to raise your hand.
Everybody can raise your hand. Okay, I see the mic.
Just shout out, otherwise we're calling on someone.
Liat.
Liat, hi. What?
You can't be invited to everything.
You can't be invited to everything. So sort of like, sorry, this is life. Okay. Yeah.
Encourage them to invite other kids that weren't invited and have their own small invite.
I love that. That's like a really good sort of like problem solving, like let's do something fun without dwelling on what was upsetting and on the negative piece. Yeah.
I'm sure there must have been a reason, because I know an experience where the mother invited not everybody because her house was small.
Right.
That's why I say you can't be
Right, you can't be invited. So practical. Right. So practical and logistics, and also like you don't know what's behind the scenes. And I think what you're saying to us is also, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It doesn't mean that it's a reflection on you per se. Who knows what the reason might be. Okay, any other ideas?
So it depends on the situation. I don't know, like if it's a broad thing, but if let's say 3 quarters of a class was not invited and a quarter of the class was invited,
Right.
then I wouldn't say to my child, you can't be invited to everything. I would just say that not everybody has the same emotional capacity to feel and to understand how it would feel to be left out of such an event. And that includes the parents as well as the children. I would just kind of try to explain that to my child, that everybody is different and that she can choose to invite everybody or not. That's her prerogative.
Right.
And that the other girl can choose to invite everybody or not. That's her prerogative. And that there's a broad spectrum of people, and we have to accept and tolerate that, not let it be a reflection on us.
Love that. Very well said.
Maybe also just validate the feeling.
Validate the feeling, for sure, for sure. That's always number one on our list, tried and true, validate the feeling. Loving the combination of everything that everybody's saying, because here what we're trying to do is really build up their resilience. We're not trying to save our children from a scenario that will happen. It will happen to probably every one of our children at some point in life. It's probably happened to all of us sitting here at some point in life. Can't save our kids, but we can try to foster resilience. How do you think a child with those skills would react in a situation like this? Like, how do you guys envision your child reacting? A kid with those skills, what would they do? Yeah.
They would be like, Ma, that really, really sucks. I'm so upset I'm not invited. I wonder why I wasn't. And then they would go through, oh, maybe it was this, maybe it was that. And you would just hear them going through all the things that we all said. And then they would be like, all right. And then they would move on.
Okay. So they would think about what the reasons might be practically and then figure something else out. Move on, move on from the feeling, figure out another solution maybe. Any other thoughts? Love that. Yeah.
Oh, it's okay. I have movies anyway with Dad tonight.
Right, right. Love that.
Plan B,
Love
like someone
that.
else was talking about.
Okay. Okay. So it seems, so what we're doing here, oh, thank you. I think I'm louder than I am. So what we're doing here now is sort of brainstorming what a child with these skills would do, and what does a picture of a resilient child look like? Let's think a minute about what a child that doesn't have those skills yet, or those skills are still emerging. We like to say that. We like to say we're still working on those skills. See a hand? Somebody who doesn't have those skills, we're still working on it.
can describe it, like physically, what would it look like? Yeah, what would they be saying? Yeah, go
I
ahead.
feel like they would dwell on it and look on the phone and every second, oh, are they posting? I want to know what they're doing. It's
a big one.
Not put their phone down until they want it. They don't want to miss a minute of it, even though they're not there.
So there's a lot of FOMO there, right? And social media these days, it just we can't be shielded from anything. So it's kind of like ruminating and looking and seeing, what are they doing and what am I missing? Yeah, definitely. Any other thoughts? Some of it was what we said before, the opposite of not taking it personally. That kid might take it in and say, I never get invited to anything, something's wrong with me, I'm such a loser, like why don't they want me? Things like that. So that's, we all know as parents, that's really hard to hear, it's really hard to watch, and it's hard to know sometimes what to do in those moments. So let's think a minute, now we've discussed these scenarios and examples, let's think a minute about what the definition of resilience is to us. What is resilience? If you had to look it up, if you had to write it down, what does it mean to be resilient?
To bounce back quickly?
Bounce back quickly.
Strength.
Strength. Love that. Those are both perfect. Like, find them in a dictionary. Yeah.
Confidence.
Confidence. Yeah, we were talking a lot about self-esteem when we were putting this together, and yeah, confidence plays a big role in resilience. I want to take a minute actually to read. It's a little wordy and it's a little heavy, but our favorite. Sorry, no printer and deal, guys. Our favorite resilience definition. Okay? Resilience is the process and outcome of successfully adapting to difficult or challenging life experiences, especially through mental, emotional, and behavioral flexibility and adjustment to external and internal demands. So basically, resilience is, life is going to throw curveballs at us. Life is going to be hard. We can't shield our kids from everything. We can't shield ourselves from everything. But when you have the resilience, when you have that trait, you're able to adapt, you're able to bounce back, you're able to not ruminate and then move on to the next and move on from the feeling. Do you think, though, that resilience shields us from stress? Like, if I'm a resilient person, does that mean I'm not a stressed out or anxious person? Any thoughts? I thought I saw hands.
I'd say no.
No. Why not?
I'm resilient, but it definitely feel stressed.
We could feel stressed. Yeah, yeah.
But stress serves us. Sometimes we need that to bring us into action, to formulate goals. It's not unhealthy to feel levels of stress. Now the question is, how do you manage and cope? Exactly, Marilyn said cope with the stress. That's a big word when we're talking about resilience, is building flexibility, adaptability, coping skills, and strength. And I think you heard from Etty Rami before, and he said that a lot of the therapy focus is on like reshaping and rethinking about your coping skills and how to monitor those behaviors. I think a lot of what he was describing was about fostering resilience in the children. And in yourself.
Yeah. And the interesting piece is that resilience isn't shielding us from stress because, like you said, it serves us, but also it teaches us about what's important to us. Like, emotions are important. It's important to feel them. And it's important to let ourselves feel them. And it's important to show our kids that they need to feel. And you said this when we were brainstorming, emotions are temporary. You know, they're going to pass. And we need to live through it. We need to manage. We need to cope. We need to handle. We don't need to whisk it away and bury it under the rug, because that's not going to serve us well. So when we're thinking about resilience, this is an important thing to keep in mind. I think with younger kids, when we're talking about like preschool, the language that we can use is, and older, like, I can do hard things. Like, my 4-year-old is learning to swim in camp, and every day she wakes up crying, what if I have to jump in the pool? I'm like, I know, Juji. You can do hard things. I can do hard things. And I've noticed that the more I use that kind of language, she adopts it and she's able to mimic back, like, okay, I can do this. We also talk a lot about feeling proud. When I go through something that I'm worrying about and I come out the other side, how proud of myself do I feel? I'm at the top of the slide, I can't get down. She kept going down, up and down, up and down. She didn't know she was going to be my example today, but she's going up and down till finally I could see she really wanted to do it. And I was just there reinforcing, trying. And then eventually she did it. She comes down, she goes, I'll feel so proud of myself. I promise you, she talks like that. She's very funny. You guys can attest to that. So it's an important thing to keep in mind. We're going to go into some of our concrete top strategies for resilience. Shall we do the exercise now that you had planned?
Yeah.
We are very fortunate to have creative art therapist. She's magical. I'm not that creative, so this is all credit to Eva.
She's very creative
I'm gonna
and
give it.
she thinks everything out in a logical and organized fashion, which is not how my brain operates, which is why we're a good team. Because I'm very creative. I like to explore things visually. Sometimes I use words. Sometimes I don't have to. That's what I use with a lot of my students in Flatbush. I have a whole art therapy room. I think he was talking about sand tray therapy before. But there's a lot of creative ways to explore our feelings. So when your kids, let's say, seem shut down and they won't talk to you, whether they're 4 or 16, sometimes teenagers don't want to talk to you, you can try and just have them, I'll give you some tools at the end. But the concept is that we want to get them to open up in whatever way is the way that they want to express. So you have to figure that out. You're a puzzle, you're a mom, you're always trying to think, what does my kid need? How can I access them? So today I'm going to give out, Etty's giving out some postcards. There's no lines on them. In an ideal world, we would have had lines on the other side, but this is what we found online. But the concept is that we want to get everybody to think about, and you can make yours today, so you can translate this for your children, a symbol of strength for you. So when you imagine strength, where is that in your body? What image comes to mind? It could be anything at all. It could be a color. Well, I don't have colors, so sorry, guys. It could be just what shape do you imagine when you imagine strength? Who's part of what gives you strength? So think about that for a minute. I know it's a little vague. It could be an object, something in nature, something that gives you strength, something that you imagine as a strong thing that you want to embody and emulate.
Guys, I would never come up with this. It's very tender.
So, I can give you a hint if you want. Anybody having a hard time with this? Yeah? Okay. So, they said yeah?
I'm kidding, I said me.
Okay. Something that really comes to mind for me is like a tree. Why a tree? Anybody tell me why a tree? Why is a tree a symbol of strength?
It's rooted.
It's rooted. Okay, very good. What else?
I don't know. I thought of a Magen David with a heart inside. I thought of a Magen David with a heart inside, specifically because the shape that points up and the shape that points down, it's like the unity of, Hashem, and then all the people here, all the people that passed on, all the support system, and just like really love, to me, is a support system in itself. Just leaning into that. I love that.
See, look what comes out of this. In 2 seconds, Marilyn was also very creative, able to link in Hashem, people, love. It's very beautiful. These are all the strengths that we draw from. What else about a tree?
Or something else.
So I was going to say that the branches all stem out from the base and the trunk. They all kind of rely on it and stem from it.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so when you think about the roots of the tree, let's say, we'll go with this example, you can imagine that it's the people in your lives and all of the strengths that you have that keep you rooted, and then from that you have a solid love foundation base from which to spring and develop your strengths. So when you talk to the kids, you could say, so what are your strengths? What would be in your tree? If you had to write words on the trunk of the tree that's your strength, or write words in the roots of the tree, who would they be? What do you do? What's amazing about you? You want to get the kids to build up their self-esteem because that will help them cope and be more resilient. So you have to help them sometimes identify, because they can say, I'm not good at anything, I don't know what you're talking about. Mom, I'm the worst, I wasn't invited, it's the worst, everything's the worst, and they get stuck. So you want to help give them some tools to think differently and creatively. So, like Marlene was saying, the branches are growing from they stem from the trunk, from the roots, and if you want to help them draw on the leaves and on the branches, they can use words for the things that they could do to cope when there's times of stress. So let's say, somebody give me a coping skill. What do you do when you feel stressed out? Exercise. I love exercise. Well, that's the best one.
I wish I would do it.
There's a lot of good ones. Okay. And everybody likes different things. Not everybody wants to exercise, but I like to exercise. Okay, what else? What's another coping skill? Yes.
Get a massage, hot shower.
self-care, right? Anything with self-care, hot massage, shower.
Deep breaths.
Okay, deep breaths. Yes, that's like becoming more like calming to your body, because when you're anxious, your nervous system is running, your heart is pumping. You want to take a breath. You have to remember to take a breath. Take a pause. What else, guys? Music. I love that. Any of the arts, music, art, anything that makes them feel good. This is self-care. Why do you need to take care of yourself? Why?
If you can take care of your
So
family.
you can take care of your family. So you can take care of your family. What else?
How about distraction?
Distraction. Yeah, sometimes.
It's so hard. You just need to distract. Yeah.
It's funny that you say distraction, because I always had mixed feelings about that one. Like, distraction, does that mean I'm shoving my feelings down and away? But I noticed, and especially over pandemic life, sometimes there's only so much we can handle, right? And if we can get distracted by taking a nap or reading a book or watching a show, sort of like a mindless show, it's a good thing as long as it's not our primary coping strategy, but I actually think it's an excellent one. So shall we take time to draw
They can
out
draw whatever they want
our
to do.
trees?
Yeah.
Okay.
I kind of visually went through
I know you
trees
did.
so that they can, because we're not in a circle where we could all show each other at the end where we meet, what we made, but I think it's a great activity. You can Google, sorry, I'll talk to you.
Sorry, I forgot about the mic. But you can actually look up art therapy techniques for coping skills and building resilience. So you can sit with your child and just, have them draw something for you. You could say, maybe you want to draw your feelings. They'll look at you like you have 6 heads, like they think it's strange. But then at the end of the day, they really end up making things. So you'd be surprised.
Right. Okay. So the bottom is the roots. Those are our sources of support, and the trunk is our internal sources of support, our internal strengths, and then the branches are our coping strategies. And doing that with your child, again, like Eva said, once we introduce something new, it takes a minute to adjust to, but once we start using that language and incorporating it regularly, they're more likely to get used to it, to buy into it, and to start using those terms with more feel in a more natural way, let's say. So we talked a lot about, through these examples, I think a lot of the concrete strategies, but let's go into some of our meaty, maybe with more specific ideas of how, I think it was our top 8 strategies for building resilience. So the first one actually is be present for your child. Be present. And number 1 was what Marilyn said, within the be present is validate. Validate means I hear you. That's what it means. I hear you. I see you. I understand you're going through something hard. What be present doesn't mean, which is hard, is I can't save you. What it doesn't mean is I can save you, right? It means I can't save you from this. And I think that all of us here recognize that logically we can't save our children. But it means validating. It means just listening to what's on their mind, listening to why they're upset, hearing them out. There was this example, many of you probably heard of Brene Brown. She's an author, she's a speaker. She gave this example, and I rolled my eyes a little bit, but really it was a very good example. She gave an example of her teenage daughter was very upset one day, went into her room crying, the lights were off, she went into her bed, and Brene went in and just sat on the edge of the bed, and it took all of her willpower to just sit there. She wanted to turn on the light, she wanted to start talking, she wanted to problem solve, but she realized, all I need to do right now is just sit here on the edge of this bed with my child, for my child. I'm not even turning on the light. I see you. And I thought that was a good visual for us. So when we're being present, guys, think about this a minute. Say we want to say something. What are some things that we can say other than, I hear you, I'm here for you? What are other things that we can say to show that we're here, but we're not saving the day or fixing the problem per se? How would you fix it? So empowering your child to brainstorm solutions and ideas. Love. Henny.
I was going to say something similar.
Yeah, but empowering them, right?
Like give an example of something that I went through, and
Love.
then say how would you go through it.
Yeah. And I think the example also shows them, I've been there, One of the things I like to say with the giving examples is, it's tricky, because then they might say, oh, you don't understand, you never had it this way, you didn't even have phones when you were little, or something like that. I mean, I'm older than a lot of you, so maybe I get that. But to show them, I've been through something like this, I can't fully understand what you're going through, but I felt these feelings before. They
You come
feel
out the
familiar
other
to me,
side.
and I've come out the other side. I love that.
They like to see that they can do it too, and I think that's an important thing for them to believe. And that's the reason we're not saving them from everything. That's not the point. We want them to grow up to be independent humans. We want them to realize that no problem is too large for them to tackle on their own. So I think that's the reason why you sit with them. You want them to come up with the solution, because if you spoon feed it to them, they're not growing. It's painful to watch sometimes. You have to just like sit back for a minute, listen, but don't give them all the answers. As therapists, sometimes we see like clearly, like we're like, okay, go. I know exactly what you need to do, but like you're not there. You need to get there by yourself. It's not the point. You wouldn't want to just spoon feed it to them.
It's like what Eddie Rami said again. Like he was like, we're not there to give advice. That's not what we're there to do as therapists. And even as parents, something important to think about is when you're sitting and when you're giving that example and when you're listening and when you're helping them, empower them to problem solve, a lot of the time, and I find this to be very effective, it's asking them, what do you need from me right now? You know, like sometimes my son will be like, leave me alone. You know, maybe he needs space. Maybe he needs to just cry it out, be alone for a while, and then he'll be able to talk and connect. Maybe they want advice. Maybe they do. Maybe they want, well, Ma, what would you do? What did you do when you were young? Maybe they want that. Maybe they just want someone to listen and they want to rant and vent for 10 minutes. We all know how good a vent session feels. Sometimes that's all we need, a cry in a vent session. And they want us to just sit there. Sometimes, I would say more rarely, right?
Sometimes they need an intervention because they're ranting and ranting and you're like, okay, wait, we need to frame this differently. Is there another way to look at the situation? Is there a positive thing that you can think of that came out of the situation, or a reason not to internalize and say it's all because I'm not good? You have to try and encourage them and guide them to think about a situation differently.
Yeah. And Yaman.
Sorry. Would you focus on their good qualities? Is that the right way to do it? Like,
Yes.
would you tell them, you know, you are so smart and you are beautiful that if they didn't invite you, it's their mistake? And would you bring up their other qualities,
Yes.
their good ones?
Yes, 100%. Marlene is asking, would we bring up their other qualities? Do we want to build them up? Not in a way, right, that's not authentic, right? So let's say we're crying because we failed math for the math test for the third time. And my best friend studies for 3 seconds and they get a 97, and I studied for 7 hours and I got a 60, right? So we don't want to give like fake, like, okay, but you're amazing and you're the smartest, right? We want to say, okay, you know what? You might have to work harder for academics or for math, but you're a superstar basketball player. Everybody has different strengths, right? And here with the inviting thing, you could say like it's their, their loss or whatever without putting the other person down too much, because you don't want to turn it into a drama, right? Like, you don't want to feed too much into that negativity and too much into the narrative of like, oh, they're the worst person and how could they do this or something like that. So you want to try to stay balanced, but yeah, building up those qualities for sure, I would say.
But on her thing, like, okay, so they didn't invite you, you're great, they lost. So how far does that go?
Right.
So you said not to be unauthentic.
Right.
Which is great.
Right.
So then what do you really tell them?
Right. Well, what you really tell them sometimes is, that's such a hard feeling. Like, I know. We wrote that our last one is hardest, modeling, but I actually think this is a little the hardest. Watching them upset about something that you know is painful, and there's not so much you could say or do to make it better. But guys, one of the things we were discussing was sometimes that's really liberating, right? Like as parents, we have so much on our plates. We have so much that we have to accomplish in a day, right? From getting the groceries and cooking dinner to making sure that everybody's happy and well fed and healthy and driven and done, and that this one got into here and this one went there. Sometimes we just have to say, I'm here with you. I'm here for you. I'm your rock. I know. I know.
And it's okay to feel sad, and that feeling of sad is going to go away. You don't
it's going to
want,
make you,
and it'll make you
it's
stronger.
going to make you stronger, ultimately, right?
Also, like when it comes to inviting, I think it's important to validate that the other people are not inviting, not because they don't necessarily, like,
For
I
sure.
had an incident with my daughter once. I guess she didn't get invited to something. She seemed a little down. I said, "What's up?" And then
feel
I
like we
really
talked
just pulled
about
out a picture from Instagram of my friends, like 4 or 5 of my friends having dinner. I wasn't there. And I said, "Look, I wasn't invited to this." I go, and it doesn't doesn't mean that they don't like me.
Right.
We do still
Right.
go out, we still, you know,
Right.
we still do things together.
Right.
Sometimes
Yeah.
they want to keep it to a smaller group,
Yeah.
sometimes they want to keep it to specific.
Yeah. Yeah.
That actually helped her a lot, seeing that, just relating my experience to her experience.
And normalizing it, and normalizing
and
it.
that's okay.
Yeah. Liao was giving a great practical, concrete example where, yeah, just normalizing it and saying, like, it can't always be. I think what you're talking about, though, also, and something that we were discussing, Eva, is like, okay, so if we're talking about a one-off not getting invited, another example we gave was, like, let's say your child is doing sand art, right? And the sand, they meticulously put every color beautifully, the amount they wanted, and they built it up, and it looks mag. And they go to, you know, put the con on top and screw the top, and the whole thing falls. And what do? Like, okay, we'll go buy another one. We'll go buy another one from the store, and we'll build it all again, and we'll make it mag again. Or, I mean, this is a much less painful, but to watch your child cry tears of frustration because they worked so hard on something and it didn't achieve the intended result can be painful. So sometimes these things are a one-off, right? Like, it happens once. Sometimes if it's a pattern, I think that's sort of also what you're talking about. Like, if we see this happening again and again and again, maybe that is something that does require further intervention, or maybe that is something. What do you guys think?
Yeah, good question.
I'm too tempted to chime in. No. What do you think?
Validate. I know
Validate.
that's hurtful. I know your brother knocked down the Legos that you worked so hard to build on.
Yeah.
I understand
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
and
For
validating
sure.
their feelings.
For sure.
But
You
if
could-
they want to, they could be
Right.
better. Yeah.
Right. If you
Not showing them defeat, like, okay, you feel bad. There's something
that.
that you can do to fix this situation.
Empower.
Right.
Empower them. But I also feel like sometimes when someone does something repeatedly wrong with their kids, sometimes I don't want my kids' self-esteem to be ruined from it. So yeah, it's important to point out that sometimes people don't do the right thing.
Yes.
And
Yes,
that's
for
not
sure.
your
You said that right
fault.
away.
It's not something
Right.
against you. It doesn't
Right.
make you less of a person. It's okay that sometimes people just don't do the right thing.
Right. Right. Just in case anyone didn't hear in the back, Margaret saying sometimes it is important to validate, sometimes people don't do the right thing. Also, I like, somebody phrased it, I think, before this way, and I can't remember who. Not everybody has the same value system as our family, right? Like, in our family, it's so important to be inclusive. They might not be trying to not be inclusive, and we don't know the reasons behind, but sometimes they didn't pick the right choice, or they don't have that value. It's nothing that you did, that you don't take it in. Is there a hand? Oh, yeah.
I always tell, like, my sister-in-laws and my son, like, just because we do something, you never expect people to do the same thing for you.
Right.
You do it because
Right.
you're a good person and
Right.
everything, but you can't always
Right.
expect people to give back to you.
She's saying, just because you do something a certain way, we can't expect that everybody's going to give that right back and that they're going to act in the same way. You know, you guys are taking up, you have all the answers already, and there's the next things on our list, which I want to just touch upon just because we're at 110 already. You know, you're taking us to building self-esteem, which we want to talk about a little bit, and you're taking us into building up their generosity and their givingness, okay? Let's talk a little bit about how each one helps. So, generosity, it always feels good to give. It always makes us feel capable when we can give whatever we can. Maybe we can't tutor my friend in math, but maybe we could help them make a mag sand art, right? Like, maybe we can do basketball, but we can't do this. So giving and being there for your friends and building up their generosity without the expectation of getting something back helps kids learn about reciprocity and give and take, helps them feel capable, empowers them, and believe it or not, that really does build resilience. Talking about self-esteem, Eva, this was a big thing for you. Maybe you want to jump into sort of like building self-esteem and how to give our kids the opportunities to shine. Right? So,
Okay, so I think there's a few ways to do this. You can do it in home and just by also involving them in different areas of life. So for example, in your house on Friday night, you need to set the table. Give them jobs. Don't say you're not capable. Oh, you're going to mess up. You're not going to set the table exactly right. They're not going to set the table exactly right. But guess what? You have to make them feel like they're capable of doing it and to a high level. Like, you hold them to a high standard because they are worthy and they can do it. So we like to do this in my house. I ask my 10-year-old, please could you set the table? She sets the table. And then on Friday night dinner, we make big announcements. I have to make an announcement. This I got from my mother-in-law. I cannot take credit for this. She makes a lot of announcements at the table. She said, I have to make an announcement. Maggie set the table today. Okay, everybody claps for Maggie. Amazing. And Maggie's beaming. And you think it's like teal, but it's really something that they love, and they need to hear that you are proud of them, and they can do things for you, and they feel great from that. So that's in the home. Outside, figure out what they're interested in. If you like basketball, but they don't like basketball, what do you like?
Or you think that a boy that plays ball is going to be the one that has more friends, right? So like we're all going to go get basketball clinic after camp, which I feel you, but it's not for them. And we tried and it's not for them, and it's not really making them feel better, but they love gymnastics, right? Like,
whatever it is that they like, you have to try and tap in, because that's really when they're living their truest self, they're going to feel confident and have the self-esteem to combat all of these different things, like all the friend drama, all the everything. When they're feeling down, whatever stress life throws them with, they're going to feel amazing because they are doing what they love.
yeah, the other things we talked about was like empowering our kids to be involved in like their self-care. So those with teenagers, like you can make your haircut appointment, you can make your dentist appointment, you can have a credit card with a specific limit and spend. Oh, that's a good one. Anybody care for a refreshment? Ices, anyone? Oh, we'll take some. So you can take part in your own care, which empowers a child to live life as a young adult and learn about their own, how to take care of their own self. Another one, it's slipping me. You remember?
Okay, another one is about physically taking care of yourself. What? Oh, not yet? What do you want to say?
Sorry, just on this one. Wait, it's slipping me again. Wait, no, in this one, oh, I love this one. Involve them in decision making. We didn't write this, but I thought of it as I was driving today. Like, if there's like a family meeting and you're deciding like where are we going to go for our road trip, or where are we going to go for a weekend vacation or something, help them. Like, what do you think I should do in this moment? Like, what do you think? They feel so good, I think, when they feel like capable enough that a parent is asking for their advice and they can actually impact decision making. Yeah.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay, what do you do if your child has a birthday party and they don't want to go, but you want them to go?
Birthday party's a tough one. I'm a sucker for really trying to make them go, guys. Any other wisdom? Listen, you want them to go because you think it's social and it's an opportunity. So why should they sit at home on an Xbox instead of being with their friends? Yeah? Okay. I hear it.
Also, you know they'll have fun.
And you know they'll have fun.
have
Okay,
fun.
Marlene is saying you know they're going to have fun. And like, we all know mom knows best here.
But
Like,
they might
we should
not
say.
have fun.
But they might,
They
do
might
they,
not
do they
have fun.
really
So what I
not
tell my
get
kids
along
is-
with the person?
What I tell my kids is when you make a party, you want everybody to have fun. So it's not always about how you feel, but maybe you're going to make that boy happy because you and I.
Oh, I like this. You don't like the mic. Okay. So here we have an example of like when you make a party, you want everyone to come, right? So I think you'll have fun and you'll make this person happy. And like it's for them, not for you.
Sometimes you have
Fine, but it can't be all for them. So then it has to be like, I also think this is going to be fun for you. We had hands.
I don't know what the reason would be that they wouldn't want to go, but let's say it's like a social anxiety. They're afraid of something,
Right.
that's why they don't want to go.
Right.
So what I found that works, you can say, why don't you go? And if you're not having a good time, or if something is
I like
bothering
that.
you, I
Love
promise
that.
I'll be there within 5 minutes. But you have to follow through, you really have to go, and then your child will gain trust. They will be less afraid because they have an exit strategy. Nobody wants, not even an adult wants to sit somewhere where they're uncomfortable for 2 hours straight.
Beautifully
But if they
said.
know that there's an exit strategy, they're less afraid to try. I found that works.
I think you should write the manual. That was very good.
So she told me that she didn't want to go because she's with her friends all week and she needed a break.
She needs the rest.
I hear that. Guys, I hear it. Sometimes I want to take a nap instead of going out. Although not with you, I always want to.
Then there's JOMO, the joy of missing out.
I never heard
Oh.
of that one.
People are getting old.
Wow. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
never heard of
Yeah,
Maybe when we go
Jomo,
back
you
to
taught us
school in
something
September,
new.
they'll teach us Jomo.
You taught us something new. I love this. I love this. Want to hear one more comment, and then I want Eva to go into self-care a minute, which we touched upon, but that's another next strategy. Yeah.
So you mentioned before telling the boys, let's say, for example, that you wanted to take basketball more, get more involved in basketball, because that really is a very good way of life for children, for boys. It's social, it keeps them off doing other
Agreed.
things.
Yeah.
Right.
Talking about basketball.
And then you're telling him he doesn't like basketball, and she says he likes gymnastics, so I'm going to gymnastics. There is no future good direction of a boy doing gymnastics but he loves it. What do you know? It's serious. What
I hear.
do you do? Because I have boys and I know basketball's a great way to go, but not everybody loves it.
Basketball is a great way to go if you end up really being confident, good at it, liking it, enjoying it. It's not a great way to go if you're on the court feeling miserable because you feel like everybody's better than you or because you're just not having fun, right? So I think a lot of this, guys, is just pushing to the extent you could push. Party, basketball, anything. We think we know best, and a lot of times we do. We have some wisdom. We do. And Eva, you were talking about like when you have the answer and you just want to give it to them because you know it's going to be right for them. Sometimes they have to learn. This one might be at too great of a cost. Like they have to learn on their own. Like not going to the party. I'm feeling a little bad about it after we'll teach her that she should go to the party next time. This is at a little bit of a greater cost, right? Because if we're saying, okay, ditch basketball, do this, maybe there's a way to find a balance.
Maybe gymnastics was not the right example, but maybe they could do baseball instead, whatever. Right. Something that's not basketball. Like we have to let them do other things. Then I know as Syrian boys, there's going to be tournaments. You want them to be able to play, but sometimes they don't want to play. They don't want to get beat up. They don't want to be pushed. They're not so aggressive.
Maybe they'll do the other tournament, like you said. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead. Fostering what they like to do, going to build up their independence, their positivity, and their self-esteem.
And they'll enjoy it. There's so much to be said for just enjoying something and being in the moment and being happy. We don't get that all the time. And like we look back at childhood, we're like, oh, imagine that life. But you know what? I don't know if I would want to relive it. It's hard. they go through a lot of hard things.
Also, it's just about being authentic.
Being authentic.
To yourself,
right?
And not.
Right.
And teaching them to be themselves.
Yeah.
And not just do something because everyone
else
does that.
It'll teach them with peer pressure for when they're in high school.
Right.
Exactly.
So Marilyn's saying something really important about being authentic, and Eva's saying by the time you get to high school, you want to build up your confidence. You want to be authentic because when you're not authentic, people eventually realize you're going to attract the people to you that you want to have a positive energy and a confidence and authenticity about you that will attract people. When you're not authentic, you're not attracting the people that you want to be surrounded with. So it's hard because I feel like this is a little bit like the gain is more in the long term sometimes, and we have to go through those hard times and those hard years to get to the other side. Sort of like what you were saying when we give the example of our own selves and our own lives. But ultimately we have to believe that it's worth it, and that it will pay off.
We're going to end soon, so I just want to talk a few minutes about physically recognizing the cues in your child. Let's say they come home from a long day of camp, it's 5 o'clock, they sat on the bus for an hour, they're crying, they hated sitting on the bus for an hour, and they're sweating and they're dripping. Now you want to start talking to them about like some deep issue that you've been having because they left their room a mess. It's not the time. Feed them first. Give them water. They don't even know that they're hungry. No, really, they're so like miserable because the bus was disgusting and they just cry every day from it, but you can't do anything about it. You can't save them from the bus, even though you called camp already.
You could drive them to camp.
Yeah, I'm never driving them to camp. They have to sit on the bus and get sweaty and too bad because life
part of childhood. No, you're right. I'm joking.
Sometimes I pick them up early from a different stop. Anyway.
I do that every day.
Okay, yeah. Sometimes we do that because we love them and care, but there's a balance. There's a balance. But the point is, you really do need to take physical cues into account. Like they need to sleep. They're going to tell you they don't need to sleep. They need to sleep. They need to eat. You can't talk to them before they do all these physical things. And the same goes for us. And I think that this goes to the last part where we need to model for our children how we are resilient. And things are not too hard for us either. If they see you living that, embodying it, they're going to follow. They're going to be like, oh, I could do it too. But really, I think, and I can make a mistake. Yes, it's not all or nothing. And we can't be perfect humans all the time, but we're trying our best. So I do think that we also need to just be very in tune with the needs of our children, try and help them figure out what their needs are, physical, emotional, spiritual. They have to nurture all the parts of themselves. I think that that's really it.